Welcome, everybody, to the Jim Acosta Show. It is Memorial Day, and instead of just remembering the fallen, our heroes, Donald Trump, making much of it all about himself, even at Arlington National Cemetery. Shocker, I know, but joining me on the show is former Capitol Police Officer, hero of January 6th, and Army Sergeant Aquilino Gonell. And it's great to see you, Sergeant Gonell. It's been too long, Aquilino. You and I used to talk on my old show from time to time.
Yeah,
It's great to see you again. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back, and happy Memorial Day. I also want to convey my gratitude to those who have served, and we need to honor the service and sacrifice of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice to defend our freedom.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely essential, and that's what this day should be all about. I have grandparents on my mom's side who are buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and that place means a lot to me. To me, it's not a place to do politics. Unfortunately, Trump was there earlier today. He was bragging that the World Cup and the Olympics will be happening in the U.S. while he is president. He said, "quote We have the World Cup and we have the Olympics. Can you imagine? I missed that 4 years," talking about when Biden was president, "and now I have everything," he says. Amazing the way things work out. And then he goes on to say, God did that. He actually said that at Arlington National Cemetery, talking about all these things that are going to be happening while he's president. God did that. Aquilina, what do you think when you hear that kind of stuff? I know it must drive you nuts, but I have to get your thoughts.
I mean, it's no shock. It's not shocking anymore about
Yeah.
his disdain for those who have served and with the blanket security that we have provided him and those who continue to serve provide to him and others around the country, instead of honoring that type of sacrifices, he belittled everybody who go against his will. And it's a grotesque way to dishonor and put shame on the sacrifices of those who who pay the ultimate price. Again, you
Yeah.
are on a sacred ground where it should be about remembering the memory of those who die and
Yeah.
honoring their sacrifices, and not for a political stunt or speech.
Yeah, I mean, I've covered him for a long time. There's something wrong with him. He can't help himself. I mean, over the weekend at West Point, again, that's a place I've been to. I've covered it. When presidents give these commencement addresses at West Point, usually it's a place where the president, sometimes it's the vice president, they put politics aside. They make it about the cadets. They make it about the
Mhm.
families who are there and all the sacrifices that they've made. And at one point, at West Point, Trump is talking about a real estate buddy of his, this guy, Bill Levitt, who apparently had a trophy wife, according to Donald Trump. I don't know why that came up during the speech, but Trump at one point said, "Could you say trophy wife?" I guess we can say a trophy wife. It didn't work out too well, Trump says about this guy. He goes on and on. A lot of trophy wives doesn't work out, but it made him happy for a little while at least. He found a new wife. He sold his little boat. He got a big yacht. I mean, I've been talking about this on my show from time to time, Aquilino. To me, for all the talk about the previous president and whether or not he was playing with a full deck, it's clear to me on this Memorial Day that Donald Trump is a couple of sandwiches short of a picnic.
Well, that's a great way to motivate those new cadets and to take begin their career as leaders. I'm sorry, I'm just being sarcastic, but
Yeah, no,
um,
ridiculous.
again, there's no level of this regard for tradition to um, see the all the sacrifices that all the people are doing, and instead of honoring that, instead of not being the forever victim, he continued to downgrade those who has served.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I hope that today he didn't say that we are all suckers and losers for wanting to uh, provide our service to the nation. Just
yep,
honor us, just because what we did, something that he himself didn't have the backbone to do it, because
yeah,
he had bone spurs.
yeah,
So he dodged the draft and things like that. I'm not a doctor, but if that's what he says, okay. great, but don't downgrade, degrade those of us who have spent a lifetime or whatever amount of time in the service to provide the security to the nation like we had or like we do, especially
Yeah.
on day to day.
Well, and Trump and his people like to say, "Oh, he never said that about suckers and losers. He would never say such a thing." But yet he's at Arlington National Cemetery today talking about the World Cup and the Olympics, and he's at West Point talking about trophy wives and yachts. So that says to me that there's plenty of reason to believe that he said suckers and losers, and that he would say something inappropriate about people who pay the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, it just seems to me that that kind of backs it up.
Unsurprising, but shocking.
Yeah.
And this is what we have come to expect from a leader of the nation right now. Like you can figure out whether he's been joking about it or somebody has said something in jest, because sometimes it's hard to tell whether he's when do we take him seriously? I mean, when he
That's a good
says,
question. When
well, I remember back in the day, Sarah Huckabee Sanders used to say, well, the tweet speak for himself for himself. I'm like, so, and then a couple of minutes later, she will say, well, he was just joking. So when do we decipher? How do we decipher when he's being serious about things like this, especially when he's talking to about service members to other people, and those
Yeah,
people are quoting him. People
ex
were present.
exactly. And Aquilino, I have to say, you're an Army veteran, you're a January 6th hero, Capitol Police officer, and if I'm not mistaken, you're from the Dominican Republic. Is that
That
right?
that is correct.
I,
I came here when I was 12 years old, and I did the best I could to provide to my family, to my become a better person, joined the military, get an education, went overseas to fight for this country in the Iraq War, came back and became a police officer where I spent 17 years of my life protecting elected officials from both parties, including presidents from both sides.
yeah. Yeah, well, I was going to say, you're an immigrant, you're an Army veteran, and you're a January 6th police veteran. You're Donald Trump's worst enemy, I guess you could say, Aquilino. What I don't know about that, but
I mean, I don't know about that. I don't certainly don't think that I am his enemy. I just detest what he had done, and especially about January 6th
yeah,
when it comes to own the action that he or inaction that he took, and hold those people who are responsible, because there's no type of support. Don't tell me that you support the police if you side with the rioters. Don't tell me you support the police if you call these people who attack the police hostages,
right.
political prisoners, warriors, or patriots. Then if you give those any of those narratives or names to those individuals who attack us, then who are we, the police officers, to him? We are
Yeah,
an inconvenience. We are the bad guys, and not only did he has sided with those people, but he parted them. And to make matter worse, under his direction, the Department of Justice had come to a settlement with the family of one of the people who were incited and wanted to uh, get to the House chamber where members
that's
of
right.
elected officials from both parties were still evacuating uh, because the mob were targeting them room by room to kill them.
Yeah,
And if it wasn't because us, the police officers, um, many of those elected officials would have died that day.
that's exactly right. And I did want to ask you about that, Aquilino, because it's been a while since you and I have spoken. He pardons the January 6 criminals.
Yep.
Some of those criminals have already reoffended. I mean, that's been in the news from
Yep.
time to time. Some of the people he pardoned or commuted their sentence have already reoffended. And then to add insult to injury, as you were just saying a few moments ago, the Trump administration is going to pay $5 million to the family of Ashley Babbitt, the Trump supporter who was shot and killed while in the mob that was breaching the House Speaker's lobby on January 6th. This is according to CBS News. The outgoing U.S. Capitol Police Chief Tom Manger confirmed it to CBS that he was informed that the Justice Department had agreed to make this payment to Babbitt's family. And Aquilino, I just have to ask you about this because we have to remind people what was happening on that day. She was not stopping when they were telling
Yeah.
people to stop, when they were telling the mob to stop, and she was climbing through that window, and that was when she was stopped.
Yeah. I mean, what people need to realize is that in order for her to be where she got, she will have to pass through at least 7 to 9 different type of security layers and barriers,
Yeah,
including doors and windows, officers telling the crowd and the people to get back, to leave, to stop whatever they were doing. And yet, at every circumstance where she was um, able to make a informed decision, a willful, informed decision. She made the wrong one each and every time.
yeah,
Now, there are other people who are now even calling for the president to have the U.S. government repay reimburse some of the attackers money that they pay for the damage that they themselves filmed themselves committing and hitting and assaulting the police officer or breaching and storming the Capitol and creating that damage.
yeah.
And they are considering those things. I'm like, what do the officers from Capitol Police and the other first responders who defended every elected official that they have to do to be even be thought out as the good guy? Because
Yeah.
if you are awarding restitution and reparation for the damage that these people were forced to pay for the damage that they themselves were gullible enough to record themselves hitting and assaulting the police officer, then how can you tell me that you support the police and the law and order and the
That's
rule of
right.
law? You
Well,
can't.
and the other thing that you mentioned, Aquilino, just to pause for a second, you hit the nail on the head when you said gullible, because I mean people need to understand this, and this needs to be emphasized. Ashley Babbitt would be alive today
Mhm.
if Donald Trump had simply taken it like a man and
Yep.
accepted that he lost the 2020 election. I want
Yep.
to repeat that. Ashley Babbitt would be alive today. Her family would have her alive today if Donald Trump had just been a man, and accepted that he lost the 2020 election.
Or
That's
at
the
least
whole ball game right there. Would have
or at
never
least
happened.
or at least she would have not died on January 6th at the in the on
Exactly.
Capitol
Well, we don't
grounds.
know what we don't know
I
what
don't
we
know
don't
what
know.
the outcome that would be,
She would not have died that day.
but nobody else invoked them, the people, the supporters, to come to the Capitol. Capitol Police, we didn't tell the people of America, hey, especially his supporters, hey, come to the Capitol on January 6th. We got something for you.
Yeah.
Or the mayor of DC. We didn't I'm sure she didn't want that type of crowd here, especially when we were dealing with COVID
Yeah.
around that time. So they themselves made that choice. Ultimately, I think the president had a lot of influence, and he still does. And he could have said the minute that the people broke into the on the peace circle, the first barrier that they broke down, he could have said, you know what, hey, this is not what I had in mind. Please go
Right.
home. Stop. But he didn't. He waited 3, 4 hours later, and by the time he actually said something that he was forced to say something,
Yeah.
people were already had beaten and injured many police officers from Capitol Police
Yeah.
and Metropolitan Police. And when he actually like putting one and two together, when he finally did say something, then the people got really more upset that now after they started doing whatever they were doing,
Right.
um he's telling them to stop. And that's where I was in the tunnel. That's where I almost got trampled. I almost got dragged into the mob like they did to Michael Fanone.
Yeah.
I almost got crushed into the door frame with a heat hub movement like they did to uh, Officer Daniel Hodges. So my day, my time there in the tunnel was horrific compared to somebody else on the other side of the building. And when
You
people
were
say,
fighting a battle. You were fighting a
yeah,
battle then.
it was a hand-to-hand medieval battle that we were having. For me, removing myself from that entrance where only 30 to 40 officers were defending that entrance, that's the only entrance that held up
Yeah.
in the Capitol. And had the mob gotten um, access to those hallways in the tunnel, then a lot of those elected officials, your elected officials, and everybody else elected officials would have been in peril, potentially
Yeah.
losing their lives.
Yeah.
Because another thing that people need to realize is that vice president was inside the Capitol, the Senate Pro Tem, the Speaker of the House. These
The
are the
line of
list.
secession.
Those The line of succession to the presidency was on the
Exactly.
line, and they all were being targeted. And if that's not a national security, then what is? When these
No,
people were literally calling for harm to those individuals.
well, and that's why I was happy to have you on the show today, Aquilino, because in my view, you were fighting in a battle to protect America and protect democracy on a battlefield. It may not have been overseas, it was on domestic soil, but it is just, I mean, it is just as critical a battle as any
Mhm.
other battle that our country has fought in its history. And that to me deserves recognition. And to me, it's an outrage that more than 3 years after the Congress approved the installation of a plaque
Mhm.
to remember the January 6 police officers, that plaque is sitting in a basement utility room in the Capitol. It is surrounded by, apparently, it's surrounded by, this is according to the Washington Post, it is sitting in a Capitol basement utility room surrounded by tools and maintenance equipment.
Yeah, is a grotesque way to show and infuriating as well, to
Yeah,
show the type of support that Republicans elected officials, especially those who we protected, especially those who were running for their lives on January 6th in fear from that peaceful, loving mob on a day of love, as
yeah,
some people want to say. And these are the same individuals that they would not have been alive today if it wasn't because of the actions that we did, not by the lack of trying by the mob, but because of what
yeah,
we did. We protected each and every one, whether that was Nancy Pelosi or Kevin McCarthy, whether that was AOC or Magic Taylor Green, which are totally different spectrum of the political.
yeah.
We were doing our job,
You were
and
defending all of them,
exactly.
even the ones who wanted to overturn the
Is
election.
exactly,
Yeah,
and those are the same individuals that go on in front of the in front of the TV and camera. Like 2 weeks ago for Police Week, they were saying the same thing. We support the police, and I have to tell you this. I know we are deviating a little bit from your question. I'll get back to it.
no, it's okay.
Um, 2 weeks ago, the White House put out an announcement saying that uh, we will support. We will never stop something along these lines. We will never stop supporting our law enforcement officers. Not
Right.
now, not never. And then day after, the settlement comes in for the $5 million for one of the attackers who injured, who broke into the Capitol. And
Yeah,
that's a type of commitment. Not now, not never. We never betrayed them, and not the 1,500, more than 1,500 people that were pardoned by him. How's that honoring me? How's not betraying me or us, the police officers? So
it's dishonoring. It's
it's a
dishonoring.
series of actions and moves that they had taken to try to convince people that they are supported, but they are not, because they do
Yeah.
the opposite. And to come back to your question
Oh, yeah.
about the plaque, it's a disservice to the sacrifice in service of those who defended the Capitol and those who die as a result of that horrific day.
Yeah.
Um, Kevin, Speaker Mike Johnson should be ashamed of himself. He always defer the question to the architect of the Capitol, when he's the one who had to authorize the plaque. The The other thing is that the plaque that it is in the basement of the Capitol is not the one that is mandated by the law, because the one by the mandated by the law requires in mandates the names of the officers to be on the plaque, not the name of the agencies who defended the Capitol.
Yeah,
There's one similar to that, I believe, inside the Capitol Visitor Center, and that's the replica of the one that's in the basement.
yeah,
Now, speaking Mike Johnson's trying to say, hey, this is this is the same plaque that is mandated in the law, and it's not. It should
right.
have the names of the officers as mandated by the law.
And why does he play games with this, do you think?
For political reason. I mean,
Yeah.
I know of all
Because of
people
Trump,
who,
I think probably because of Trump.
of course, of
Yeah.
all people who don't believe, that nothing bad happened on January 6th are most of them Republican. And if we did something bad happen, it was police brutality against his supporter because they were so friendly to us.
Yeah.
They were giving us hugs and kisses as
Yeah.
compared to the beat
They were
down.
just tourists. They were just
Yeah,
tourists.
yeah. I got so much love that required me to have two surgery.
Yeah.
One on
How's
my
your
right
hand doing?
foot.
I remember you showed me that one time you had a tennis ball and you had
Yeah,
to go through.
that was
Yeah.
in the aftermath after my surgery, which I was still going through the
Yeah.
physical therapy. But for the most part, my physical injury had healed.
That's good.
I still have some limitations, especially on the left shoulder for stamina and things like that. I lost my career because of that. I was
Yeah.
robbed of my career because I didn't leave the Capitol Police on my own accord.
Because you wanted to keep going. You
Yeah,
wanted to keep
yeah.
serving for
And I could,
years.
yep. And I did in my best to including downplay my injuries to the documents that I was good because I wanted to come back to work and continue my
Yeah.
career, and that unfortunately that was not the case.
And Aquilino, do you sometimes say to yourself, you know what, I don't want to speak out anymore. I'm done with this. I'm tired of this. What is your view right now? What do you want to say to people out there who worry about folks like yourself, people like Mike and Harry and the others? Uh, do you get tired sometimes, or are you determined to keep fighting?
I mean, it's exhausting, emotionally and
Yeah,
physically. But I know that there are not a lot of people standing up and being outspoken out there. That's what led us to be where we are now. Because when we were speaking up, a lot of people remained silent, and people decided to stay quiet and let somebody
yeah,
else do the talking, or that they're standing up. I had taken a step back a little bit, not like I used to be before, where I was more outspoken.
yeah,
Not because I'm in fear of retribution or anything like that. I mean, at the end of the day, we did our job on January 6th. They went to a new the pardons given by President Biden. I never asked for one of them.
yeah.
I'm grateful that he did, but I never asked for one because at the end of the day, I did my job and what it required of me. And if you
I'm glad they
remove,
did it because the way that they are gaslighting people, the way that they're lying to the
yeah,
American people, I don't think it's a stretch that maybe they would have come after you,
I'm sure they
you know?
have thought about. There are a lot of people who support him, and there are got he's whispering in the ears for him.
Yeah.
So he always putting things like, "But what they gonna get me on? Like doing my job?"
I mean,
You
yeah,
know,
exactly.
I
There's
mean,
it would be
if
silly, it would be a
if
farce.
if you
Yeah.
remove Donald Trump's Omega out of the equation and put somebody else, another type of group, these are the same individuals that will be praising me if I
Yeah.
would be spoken out against Black Lives Matters or Antifa or any other group that attacked the Capitol. And what they need to realize is that my oath has uh, has been to the Constitution of the United States, not to a president. My loyalty is to the United States and always has been. I did that in the military and also as a police officer. I'm not. I know I had to obey the chain command, but I'm not going to obey the chain command of some if it goes against the law and or my beliefs that something is wrong and I shouldn't be doing it. And that's
Yeah.
where the fallacy that a lot of people or his supporters, they always deny first that he said or did this, then they tell them, well, it's not as bad as then come around, okay, so what, he did it,
Yeah.
deal with it. I'm like, so they go into with this whole cycle about processing it and internalize it when they
Yeah.
will never stand to any of those issues or problems or statements if that was done by anybody else.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Sergeant Gonell, I know you heard me say this before, but I hope you've been looking at some of the comments that have been coming up during the show so far. The feeling is pretty unanimous here on this show that you continue to be a hero to this country. We still thank you for what you did on January 6th. Thank you for what you did in your military career, and we're behind you all the way. So I hope you don't give up, and I hope you stay positive, and hope we can talk like this again.
Sure. Anytime that you want me to hit back on your show, let me know. I'll come back. And for yours, for everybody else who's in the audience, follow me back. I'm on Substack myself. If you
Yep,
can, please subscribe. You got my book right behind me. If you haven't read it or listened to it, please do. And thank you for supporting us, the police officers, and those who defended our nation with their memory and our
you bet.
sacrifice. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You you bet, Aquilino. I have done it. I'm doing it now. I'm going to continue to do it. And for all those people out there who say, "Hey, let's move on. We don't want to talk about this anymore," ain't going to happen. We're not going to let
Well,
that happen.
in order for us to move on, we need at least the plaque on be
Yes,
installed. And two, they need to let that to Donald Trump because he still had not moved on, even though he's the president now.
that's right. He's the
He's
one that
still
can't move on. That's exactly right.
exactly.
Yeah. Good to see you,
And
Aquilino. Thanks a
good to
lot.
see you.
All right. Thanks, buddy. All right.
Bye.
Best of luck to you. Talk to you soon. And that is Sergeant Aquilino Gonell. Let's get to my friend, your friend, Michael Cohen. It's time for another edition of Michael Monday. It's been far too long. I'm glad to have him back on the show. We've got plenty to talk about. Might be some of the same themes I was talking about with Aquilino there a few moments ago, but let's get Michael on this as well. Hey, Michael, how are you, man?
Jim, how we doing there, buddy?
Good, good, very good. It's been too long, and it's great to see you on this Memorial Day. I know you wrote about this on your Substack. I mean, knowing Trump all too well, you're not surprised to see what he said at Arlington National Cemetery, the posts that he put on Truth Social, the comments that he made at West Point over the weekend. It just, I was saying this, he's like a nonstop geyser of just nonsense and one abomination after another.
You know, Jim, I started my Substack with an emotion that Memorial Day. It's why this Memorial Day, Trump kills liberty. I wasn't
Yeah,
joking, nor was I trying to be hyperbolic. And you know what? This light is sort of bad. I
go
think
ahead.
that should, yeah, that should
There
be
you
better.
go. There you go.
And so I said, there was a time when Memorial Day meant something in this country. It's a time when we paused, if only briefly, to honor the men and women who gave their lives, not just for the flag, but for the ideals stitched into its fabric:
Yeah,
liberty, justice, the rule of law. You see, then I reflected back when I remember standing in cemeteries as a kid, watching old veterans salute with
mhm,
trembling hands, tears pooling in the corners of their eyes as taps rang out over the graves of the fallen. Those moments are sacred. They were real. Instead, now you have cosplay going on. You have a
yeah,
president that stands there with his chest puffed out, no care, calling these folks suckers and losers. They are not suckers and losers. They are
yeah,
the reason, Jim, that you and I have the ability to do what we're doing right now. They're the reason why everybody that you watch on Substack or you watch even on television have the ability to do the things that they are doing, it's because of them and the ones that are currently serving right now. When you walk past somebody, as we do here in New
Yeah.
York, you know this, Jim, for Fleet Week or for the Memorial Day parade, you say
Yeah.
thank you for giving
That's
me
all you have to do.
ability.
That's all you have to
It's
do.
it's
We don't need the other stuff.
easy.
But he's at Arlington National Cemetery talking about how he's getting the Olympics and the World Cup. I mean, you know this because you've been with him before. When he makes these kinds of asinine comments, do any of the aides say to him after it's over, sir, maybe you shouldn't have said that? I mean, I have to imagine they're all afraid to say it to him.
They are afraid and they don't say it. And that's
Right.
really the whole thing. As I said, it's a goddamn parody, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the commander in chief is a draft dodging egomaniac who
Right.
has the gall to call people who put their lives on the line for his democracy, for his family's democracy. You call them suckers and losers?
Yeah. No,
Imagine.
and he and his people, and I talked about this with Aquilino a few minutes ago. He and his people say, "Oh no, he never said the suckers and losers thing. He never said that. That's not real," and so on. But it leads me to believe that he did say it based on the fact that he says these asinine things at West Point. He's talking about Bill Levitt having a trophy wife and a yacht. What does that have to do with anything that has anything to do with West Point? And then he's at Arlington National Cemetery talking about the World Cup and the Olympics. If he feels in these moments when he's on hollowed ground where he can say these kinds of goofy, ridiculous, nonsensical things, and of course he probably said suckers and losers. Why even fight that battle anymore?
You know, Look, I've written about it, I've talked about it.
Yeah,
He certainly would not put himself in jeopardy for anyone. He doesn't have that sort of nationalism, he doesn't have that honor. That's just not who he is. What he
right.
understands, though, is loyalty. That he understands, so long as it's directed to him, not to country, not to the Constitution, not to our democratic norms, but to him.
Yeah. But and you and I've had this conversation a few times. I'm going to bring it up again. You really don't think that he's starting to lose it a little bit. He
No.
strikes me as a couple of sandwiches short of a picnic.
Well, as
What
we
is it
like to
about it?
say better.
What's going on in his head that he thinks it's okay to make these kinds of comments?
Yeah, because he doesn't understand accountability. There
Yeah.
is no dementia. He may not be as sharp as he was 20 years ago or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say I'm not as sharp as I was when I was in my
Well, yeah.
right? That's just a fact.
Same.
But it's just an issue of being mean. It's an issue of being mean for the sake of being mean because, Jim, it's red meat
Yeah.
for his MAGA supporters. That's it. It riles up the base. I'm
He's
more
hooked on it.
angry. Yeah. Jim, to be honest with you, I'm angrier, not with what Trump said at Arlington. I'm not angry with him at that.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
expect that. You know who I'm angry at? I'm angry at those idiots that are sitting there in the audience clapping at
I
the
heard that
buffoonery, at the stupidity,
at
at the
Arlington.
sheer ignorance
Yeah.
in Arlington Cemetery. And so
Yeah.
I would say to
It
every
makes me
Gold
sick.
Star
It makes me
family,
sick.
me too. Me too. It's why you and I get along so well because it's not
Yeah.
that we agree on every economic policy or every governmental policy. We
Yeah.
don't. But you know what we agree on? Honor, respect the
Yeah.
Constitution. How about respect for every Gold Star family, for every veteran, for every active duty service member who took the oath to defend the Constitution against
Yeah.
enemies, foreign and domestic?
Yeah, and
They
it's no, and it's exhausting too because listen, this is the last thing I want to do on a Memorial Day is spend my time talking about. I enjoy hanging out with you, but this is the last thing I want to do is spend my time talking about Trump acting like an ass in places where he should be showing honor and respect. And, to me, that's what makes this so difficult because he is going to keep doing this. This is going to keep happening for the next 3.5 plus years. And I wrote about this on my Substack in a piece I did. The thing that I get really worried about, Michael, because I've met West Point cadets before, is the effect that he's having on young people in America. Not just young people in America, but on young people around the world. People's ideas about the presidency in the United States are they're kind of solidifying. They're hardening as to what it's all about based on this bozo, based on what he does. I mean, this is a toxic effect that he's having on people.
Jim, it's how could it not be?
Yeah,
Like I said, you're talking about the ongoing and continuous destruction of our democratic norms, of our ideals, of our
yeah,
American values. I have family that live overseas, and they were called me, just to see how I was doing, just to
yeah,
sort of catch up. I haven't spoken to them in, I don't know, maybe a month. And they asked me, how are you holding up with
yeah,
all of this? We didn't feel like bothering you, but we haven't spoken to you in about a
yeah,
month, and it's probably the longest we've ever gone not
mm,
speaking. My first cousins, and I said, I'm okay. I'm saddened watching a guy who I have had so much regard for, a guy who, as I had written about in my book Disloyal, that I would have taken a bullet for. And I'm watching him as he's destroying everything that you're supposed to really care about.
yeah,
It's not supposed to be predicated on the almighty dollar, right?
yeah,
You work hard, you'll make money.
yeah,
You'll make something. I'm not saying that you're going to end up buying a 200-foot yacht, but you work hard, you should do okay, right? You
yeah.
should be able to exist,
The American
to
dream.
exist
Yeah,
and have the American dream. Not with Trump and these people anymore.
yeah,
Right now, this is all about them, what they can steal from this country. And it's not just money, it's our souls. It's the
yeah,
souls of America. And I don't want this to sound like some sort of a, Memorial Day plea. It is not, right?
yeah,
But on Memorial Day, it's the day that you're supposed to take a second and you're supposed to pull
yep,
back and thank the memories of those that have given up the
yeah,
ultimate sacrifice
yeah.
for
No, I agree
our
with you. I
democracy
agree
and
with
our
you.
freedom. And
And
Jim, we're watching it
yeah.
eroding.
I know, and I think about my mom's parents are buried at Arlington National Cemetery, and it makes my blood boil not just to hear Donald Trump make those asinine comments that he did. It makes my blood boil, as you said it so perfectly. The people who are applauding,
I couldn't
the
believe
people
it.
who
I
are
wanted to
applauding
throw
that
up.
the people who are applauding that sick behavior are also sick. And that's what makes me worry about this country. It makes me worry about this world because I have to assume there are some young people in that crowd who felt it was appropriate to applaud. They looked at maybe their parents and grandparents who were applauding, and it just needs to stop. There has to be respect for a place like Arlington National Cemetery. My God, is there anything that is left in this country that is sacred to this man? I mean, that to me, the answer is there's nothing.
Well,
If he can't behave himself there, where can he?
no, spot on, Jim.
Yeah.
Spot on, spot on. If you would share with our viewers right now, share with them what took place already at Arlington Cemetery once before, where they were instructed. This was during, I think, the campaign,
During the campaign. They were filming an ad. They filmed an ad there.
right?
They were told, people around Trump were told not to film an ad at Arlington National Cemetery. And they apparently pushed one of the workers there. They got physical with one of the workers there. And, there was an investigation and so on. And of course, because Trump is the commander in chief, nothing's ever going to happen in that case. But you know, that did happen during the campaign, and these folks obviously have no respect for that hallowed ground, and it is where the tomb of the unknown soldier is. It is where so many people's loved ones are buried. I mean, one of the time-honored traditions here in Washington, Michael, during the holidays, there's a wonderful group of people who put wreaths on every one of those grave markers during the holidays. I mean, it's an institution in the Washington D.C. area that is revered. And I remember my mom's dad died when she was 2 and was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. I didn't know him, obviously, but my mom's mom, my grandmother, died when I was a senior in high school and was buried next to him at Arlington National Cemetery. And I have to tell you, that was a massive point of pride for our family that they're
Sure.
buried.
You
And
know,
and
in
it just
19
makes my blood boil to see
sure,
him
and
behave this
I
way.
have, and I got goosebumps,
Yeah.
from the story.
Yeah.
I remember in 1987 when I was working for Congressman Joe Moakley of Massachusetts.
Mm,
I was a junior at
yeah.
American University, and I was working as an assistant legislative aide at Joe Moakley's office there in the Capitol. And I remember them turning around and saying, anybody who has some free time on Memorial Day, we assist in laying and placing the flags, the
The
little American
Yep.
flags, directly to the right of every one of the headstones that are there. And
Yep.
they asked if anybody was going to be and wanted to do it. And I wasn't going back to New York because we didn't have a lot of days off. So I figured I'd just stay and stick around in DC. And so I did. And I got to tell you, it was the experience of a lifetime,
It
of a
is.
lifetime, the honor of a lifetime
Yeah.
to lay a little plastic flag with a little pin in it,
Mhm.
right next to the headstone, an American flag next to it. And I
Yeah.
remember they
That's
gave
great.
us they gave us this big box. We each got a gigantic box. There must have been, I don't know, 200 flags in it. And I don't know how many. Do you know how many people are actually buried at Arlington?
I you
Because there
know
must have been 100 people like me, 100
Yeah.
that that were out there. Each one of us putting
Over
that. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say that, and that's a great story. More than 400,000 people are laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery, including those who fought in the Civil War, and of course, President Kennedy is buried there as well. So go on, go on. I
And
mean,
I
that's
just
our
I just
nation's history
remember
right there.
I just remember it like it was yesterday. And it's these are the
Yeah.
things that sort of make, you know, for these stories that like you write about and I write about in my Substack. In
Yeah.
when I start off and I said as a kid, I remember going to the cemetery, and I didn't do it year after year. The reason I did it, believe it or not, I was in sixth grade at the
Mm,
time.
yeah.
And a friend of mine was one of the most incredible, in sixth grade, trumpet
Incredible.
players. He happens to be a lawyer now. He was one of the most incredible gifted musicians. And
Yeah.
he played taps
Mm,
for the VA out there in Long Island. And we went to the cemetery. And I just remember these
yeah.
these elder men with their with
Yeah.
their with their hats, those little hats, that
Oh yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
they had them. They were so proud. Their uniforms were so perfectly starched. Their shoes
Yeah.
were perfectly mirrored. I mean, shiny and done
Yeah.
up. And just the
Your hearts just
look
go
in
out to
their
them.
face,
Yeah.
Jim, the stoic look on their
Yeah.
faces. I'll never
Yeah.
forget it. I'm talking about, this has got to be 40. This is probably what, 45 years ago,
And you remember it
44
like it was
years
yesterday.
ago.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I can remember their faces, and I remember the tears rolling down their faces as they stood saluting their fallen brethren, right? I mean, and I'm saying to myself, and this man who refused to engage, and that's okay. I understand
Yeah.
being fear. I understand the fear that he must have had, and I understand not wanting to own that fear. I think we could all sort of understand that. but then to mock the thing that you
Oh,
fear most, what does that
it's just sick.
say? Jim,
Well,
what does that say about him?
he's not a man. I mean, he's not. He's a shell of a man. And I think, listen, we should talk about some other stuff because and this flows right out of the conversation that we were having. But on Friday, he was threatening to put these tariffs on the European Union. And then yesterday, he said that he's going to delay the tariffs again. The tariffs were announced on Friday, and on Sunday, he said, I'm going to delay these tariffs until July the 9th. This is on the European Union. Michael, what is going on with Trump threatening these tariffs and then delaying them? He's done this over and over again. He's the boy who cried tariff. I mean,
Well, yeah,
there's no follow
this is a
through.
problem, Jim. Yeah, this is a problem because
His
then
word means
our
nothing.
well, that's the problem that the foreign countries they don't take him serious, right? Yeah, yeah, he's talking tariffs again. All right, yeah, sure, right? It's exactly the boy who cried wolf. First of all, if you want to get somebody to the negotiating table, if it's okay, I'd like to give them a little bit of Michael Cohen advice,
Yeah,
probably the identical advice the great Jim Acosta would give. Pick up a phone,
yeah,
make a phone call,
yeah.
call up whether it's Macron, call up whether it's what's her name, the prime minister of Italy, the president of Italy,
Georgia Maloney. Yeah, yeah,
Maloney, right?
yeah,
Just pick up the phone.
yeah.
I promise you one thing: I'm not psychic, but I am 100% certain and willing to put money on it that if the secretary in the palace there in Italy says President Donald J. Trump is on the phone for you, Madam President, she'll pick
Yeah.
up the phone.
Exactly. That's the thing. I mean, but the reason why I bring this up is because, I mean, obviously his word means nothing, not only here in the United States, but around the world. The reason I bring up the tariff thing because people were making a big deal yesterday about Trump. He's finally said something negative about Vladimir Putin. And
What did he
Trump,
say?
he says, Trump, this was yesterday. He was asked about the Russian attacks on Ukraine and these drone attacks, which have been unbelievable. The Ukrainians say this is probably the biggest drone attack that Ukraine has had to deal with since the start of the war. But apparently, Trump said yesterday, he was asked about it, I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people. I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I don't like what Putin is doing, not even a little bit. He's killing people. Something happened to this guy, and I don't like it. I mean,
Okay,
if only we had a president who would do something about it. And my God, Earth to Trump, Sputnik to Trump. At what point was Vladimir Putin not a cold-blooded killer in your mind? At what point? I
well,
mean,
if I can ask you a
yeah,
question on that, at what point in time, what statement that you just read is that negative to Putin? You may not like what he's doing, but
yeah.
how about turn around and say, if he doesn't knock that shit off, if he does it again, the United States will
Bing,
step in
bingo.
and we will do what we need to do to protect our ally.
That's right. We're going to give them all the weapons that they want. They can fly those goddamn fighter jets however far they want. They can fire those missiles however far goddamn they want. And the problem with Trump is, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. First of all, his word means nothing on the world stage, that we know. But at every turn, he sides with Putin. And so when he says something, when they're out there, the headline writers and the editorial writers and the smart people in Washington are like, oh, he finally said something about Putin. No, he did not.
That's what
As
I'm
just
saying.
as
No,
you said, just as you said, Michael. No, he did not. It's again, at every turn, he sides with Vladimir Putin. Doing nothing is a win for Putin. Saying something that means nothing is a win for Putin. You are the president of the United States. If you're shocked by the level of killing in Ukraine, I mean, I guess we should say welcome back to the real world. Although I think he's just stalling for time. He just doesn't ever side with peace and democracy and the cause of freedom around the world. He just doesn't do it.
could
He's
you
Putin's
imagine?
guy.
Yeah, Jim, could you imagine if instead of this non-statement statement of anger or disgust based upon the attacks on Kiev and other areas there in Ukraine, he turned around and he said, I want to make this crystal clear to Vladimir Putin. If there is another attack like this on Ukraine ever again, because as of today, I'm putting my
Yeah.
foot down. As of this moment, if there is another attack such as this one, the United States will send 25,000 of its finest soldiers, along with $5 billion worth of the most latest, greatest, updated, tactical munitions that the United States has. And we will level Moscow like you have never experienced or thought about in your entire life. We
Yeah.
will
Well,
level
he's definitely
Moscow.
not going to do that. And I mean, there are options short of a direct attack on the Russians and elevating and escalating things to that point. But I mean, he isn't even moving an inch in the directions where the Ukrainians want to go. I mean, he's not even going to the extent that Zelensky would go, and he doesn't even try to have Zelensky as a full bargaining partner in these so-called peace talks. I mean, the whole thing is a farce. But
Jim, can I
yeah,
just finish one thing with
yeah,
Vladimir Putin? We all know who Vladimir Putin is. We all know who he is. He
yeah,
is a dictator. He is an autocrat. Certainly, it doesn't work for the United States. Maybe it works for Russia. That's fine. Keep yourself, keep your autocracy, keep your fake democracy there in Russia until the
yeah,
Russian people revolt. But you need to leave Ukraine. And the only way to deal with somebody like Vladimir Putin is to turn around and to say to him exactly what I just said. You cannot negotiate with somebody like Vladimir Putin when it comes to this. He is 100% hell bent on a war victory because that's the only way he will be able to justify to
yeah,
all of the mothers, grandmothers, and wives and sisters of brothers, husbands, sons that have been killed in this war.
yeah.
People don't realize the number of casualties that Russia has experienced in their
Oh yeah.
soldiers.
Well,
I
they
mean,
because they live in a black hole of information in Russia. The Russian people do not receive the kind of information that we do here in the free world because Vladimir Putin has essentially done what Donald Trump is trying to take the United States in the direction of, and that is he has full state media control over the information in that country. And people who step out of line um, experience the same fate as Alexei Navalny. I mean that's just the fact of the matter. And the Ukrainians, what they're going through right now, is something that the United States should be thanking them for. They are fighting for the cause of freedom and democracy. They're doing it on the front lines of their own homeland. And without their bravery, without their courage, where would Putin be now? He'd be in other countries. He'd be trying to waltz across the rest of Eastern Europe. But Michael, it's always great to catch up with you, my man. Thank you so much.
always great to see you,
Uh,
Jim. You
all
take
right,
care of yourself. To everybody, a happy rest of Memorial Day. And again, if you see anybody in uniform, just say thank you. It's
just
that
say
easy.
thank you. Exactly.
And I
Well
say
said.
thank you to you, Jim.
And I say thank you to you as well. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
Be well, brother.
Great to talk to you as always. All right, another edition of Michael Monday in the books. Just want to thank everybody for tuning in on this Memorial Day weekend. I woke up this morning and I thought, you know what? I'm going to take the day off. I'm going to hang out with family and friends. And then I saw Trump's comments at Arlington National Cemetery on the back of what he said at West Point. And then he put this Truth Social post out there. And I suppose there are folks out there who will say, well, there you go. You're chasing the bright, shiny object. You're taking the bait, blah, 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 and so on. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please don't call it taking the bait. I call it taking a stand. Taking a stand for what is right in this country. And I don't want to sound self-righteous or I'm on my soapbox or anything, grandstanding, anything like that. Somebody has to say something. My mom's parents, my grandparents are buried at Arlington National Cemetery. And there's just no way I could go through this day without standing up for them and the other people, God rest their souls, who were buried there uh, because of what they did for this country, because of the sacrifices they made on behalf of this country. It's not taking the bait, it's taking a stand. And I thank Sergeant Aquilino Gonell for taking a stand. You know, some of these police officers who fought to protect the Capitol on January 6th after Donald Trump was reelected, put back in the White House, and he pardoned all those criminals from January 6th. Those police officers could have said, you know what, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to be in the public square anymore. I'm not going to talk to people in the press. I'm not going to talk to people like Jim. That's it. I'm done. And people like Aquilina are still out there, still speaking the truth, still talking about why it's necessary to have a plaque that honors the police officers of January 6th hanging in that Capitol. It should be hanging in that Capitol, honoring the service of those police officers. Full stop. Full stop. Every day that that plaque is not hanging in the Capitol is an outrage. And it is a cause for shame for the people who are standing in the way of that. And so I'm very thankful to Aquilino Gonell. I salute his service. I thank him for his service. I thank Michael Cohen for staying in the fight. He's another person after Trump was reelected, put back in the White House, could have said, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm not going to speak out anymore. Hell, after what happened to me, I could have said, you know what, the hell with it. That's it. Not going to speak out anymore. Not going to do that. Nope. Just watch. Just try and stop me. Every day that you go out there, Donald Trump, and just spew one abomination after another, just know you're not going to wear us down. We're not going to get tired. We're not going to stop. We're not going to quit. We're going to keep speaking out. We're going to keep speaking out because that is the right and good thing to do. It is the right and good thing to do to speak out on behalf of our democracy. And the pundits and the experts and the people who are paid a lot of money and sit in lofty positions here in Washington, they can say, oh, you know, the pollsters say, the experts say, you shouldn't talk about democracy. You shouldn't talk about freedom. You shouldn't talk about the rights of migrants. You shouldn't talk about those kind. You shouldn't be talking about the rights of the vulnerable in this country. Those are those things are losing issues. They're losers. Screw that. To hell with that. I'm going to keep fighting for this stuff. I'm going to keep talking about this stuff. And speaking of that, I hope if you're in the Washington D.C. area that you will join me on Monday, June the 2nd. That is 1 week from today. Monday, June the 2nd, 1 week from today at the Lincoln Theater here in Washington, D.C. We're going to be having a live town hall. Got my friend Olivia Troy there. Got my friend Michael Fanone there. Going to have some other surprise guests there. Some folks who have been in the news lately. Not going to give it away just yet, but we're going to have some other surprise guests there. And over the course of this week, little by little, we're going to fill you in on who's going to be there on Monday, June the 2nd at the Lincoln Theater here in Washington, D.C. You're not going to want to miss this. You want to get your tickets. Tickets are going to cover the costs of this live town hall. Uh, you know, this is not a money-making venture. This is about giving the time and space people like the federal workers in the Washington, D.C. area who want their voices heard, people like the musicians at the Kennedy Center and people who work in the arts around Washington, D.C. Aaron Parnas has told me he's going to be there. Somebody was just asking about Aaron Parnas. He told me he's going to be there. Duke, is Duke going to be? Oh, man. I'll talk to the Lincoln Theater. I don't know what their pet policy is. It would be wonderful if Duke could be there. If Duke can be at the Lincoln Theater on Monday, June the 2nd for our live town hall, we're calling it the Fire Within. um, I will bring him. He will make an appearance if it's allowed. I'll bring my poop bags and the whole 9 yards just in case. He's pretty good. He's pretty well house broken at this point. No dog is perfect. No man is perfect. No woman is perfect. No dog is perfect. But if possible, Duke will be there as well. But want to thank everybody for watching. I know there's some people who say you shouldn't say Happy Memorial Day. I'm going to say Happy Memorial Day because I do hope that all of you have the great start to the summer that you all deserve, unofficial start to summer that you all deserve. But I'm also going to say, make it a good Memorial Day and think about the people who did make the ultimate sacrifice for this country and just think some good thoughts about them and what this country is all about on this Memorial Day. Really appreciate your time. Still reporting from Washington. I'm Jim Acosta. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. Take care. Good night.